Hey all, Adam the Exacto Guru here, and first, let me apologize to all you lovely folks for the late video. I've been having some pretty immense personal struggles lately, and getting this video finished was harder than usual as a result. However, today I'm going to talk a bit about a topic that seems to be coming up frequently for me. Whether it's a post on Facebook regarding one politician or another, or my father insisting on bringing it up, I seem to hear something about this topic nearly every day. I'm talking about climate change, and I hope you'll bear with me. We have a strange situation going on in the world today, where there are publicly elected world leaders who are tasked with legislating against a global disaster. To make the matter even more strange, we have the leader of the so-called free world ignoring the scientific community when he himself is ignorant of the concept to begin with. Donald Trump and Andrew Scheer choose to ignore the fact that in the fifth assessment report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which was endorsed by the United Nations, over 1,300 scientists independently concluded that there is a better than 95% chance that human activity has negatively impacted global warming. The panel also concluded that there is a greater than 95% probability that human-produced greenhouse gases have increased temperatures across the planet over the past 50 years. We have people who understand that coal is literally compressed carbon atoms who cannot understand how burning that coal releases carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Or that those specific gases from that specific coal wouldn't be in the atmosphere otherwise, because no other species digs things up and burns them. When this point is raised, deniers tend to point out the amount of gases released by a volcanic eruption, or that there is a history of cyclic global warming and cooling, failing to understand that the latter point still holds true. Those extraneous gases would not have been released had that coal not been burned. Given that the gas released, which is of primary concern, is carbon dioxide, my discussion will largely focus on this. According to the ice core record, which accounts for both the global warming and cooling cycles, which absolutely do exist, and the amount of gases released from volcanic eruption, global CO2 levels had only reached 280 parts per million prior to industrialization. Today, global CO2 levels are in excess of 410 parts per million. What that tells us is that 3 in 10 carbon dioxide molecules currently in the atmosphere are there due to human activity. Now, the heat-trapping nature of CO2 was actually demonstrated in the 19th century. The ability to trap infrared energy is the basis of many instruments aboard spacecraft flown by NASA. It shouldn't even be a question that increased levels of heat-trapping gases must result in an increased temperature on the planet. In regard to carbon dioxide emissions from volcanic eruptions, the way scientists are able to account for it in their research is by sampling both active eruptions and subsurface magma emissions. They then compare those results with results from sampling human-made emissions, such as those from coal and fossil fuel burning, deforestation, and cement production. In 2013, scientists Michael Burton, Georgina Sawyer, and Domenico Granieri published their study, which concluded that volcanic activity accounts for approximately 0.6 billion metric tons of CO2 emissions per year. This pales in comparison to the emissions released by human activity, which is in excess of 29 billion metric tons per year as of 2015. It's simply not possible that the Earth's natural processes have been the sole cause of the sheer degree to which the climate has changed. There are many changes we can make now that would greatly reduce current, ongoing emissions. However, they are changes that people on both sides of what shouldn't even be an argument have clouded judgment on. These changes include things like adopting nuclear power, granting better access to improved mass transit, improving advantages to buyers of alternative fuel vehicles, access to fuels other than simply gasoline, diesel, or electricity, improved implementation of carbon capture on existing power plants, and advancement of improved solar and wind technologies, as well as so many others. The argument usually raised against these changes is that they cost money. Yes, they are changes that, added up, cost well into the trillions. The thing that these people turn a blind eye to is that we do have time, and some of these changes are actually highly cost effective. Not to mention, some are great opportunities for new business to arise. If we couldn't get the leaders of these Fortune 500 companies to think outside of their wallets and get off their soon-to-be brown golf courses, we wouldn't even see people arguing for these changes to come from government legislation. We could see the real benefit of having a free market economy in the world. However, what we are getting is an oligarchy. An oligarchy which has successfully duped the masses into thinking that we would be doomed without them. This is simply untrue. The knowledge and skills of the masses will still exist without these men running things. The means of production will still exist, and no one is advocating for those to become government-controlled. That would be total fucking madness. We live in such a great time to be a human, yet this basic concept of being excellent to one another seems to be so fucking hard for everyone. We currently have a situation where those who could best be driving the changes needed are being mindlessly led by those who have the most to gain from the continued practices. Imagine, if you will, a world where car companies design cars that could use any fuel that can burn, or had options for the very material that your car is built from. Imagine a city that fully understood its obligation to provide reliable mass transit available on a frequent enough basis that your odds of gaining employment actually increase. How about a fuel company that produces fuel not from oil pulled from the depths of the earth, but from the leftover distillers' grains, which are not used for food production? Well, it turns out that Henry Ford had envisioned just such a car company, as did the founders of cities like San Francisco, where trolleys were implemented to provide reliable transit for workers. So did Samuel Morey, who invented the internal combustion engine, the prototype of which ran on ethanol and turpentine. The idea of building a company which is not only sustainable, but able to function independently from other organizations is clearly not a new one, but merely an idea we have lost over a very short time. Part of the reason we have lost this understanding is pure and simple greed. Through greed, the oil companies influenced the automakers, who influenced the cities about their transit systems, who in turn were left with only one option for a fuel to run the machines they were coerced to accept. Tack onto that nearly 100 years of people jumping in their cars as if they had no other choice for transit and pulling up to the pump without a second thought. It's not hard to understand why the average citizen won't do their own research, instead relying on those who they've been conditioned to trust for information. However, when their government is in disagreement with the information presented, it makes it hard for those people to know who to trust. Since our governments have largely become susceptible to the antics of court jesters in the form of lobbyists, the ones we should be trusting are the scientists. But these lobbyists happen to be very good at selling spin. They have managed to spin what should be a cut and dried scientific fact into a political debate, where it seems that there are sides to take. The only real side here is the side of humanity. Either we change the way we do things now, or our grandchildren will suffer the consequences. If you can't agree with me on that, I ask you to think about it as a wager. If those of us who claim climate change is real are wrong, and we make change, those corporations are only out some money. Money they will likely earn back with new business models required to make some of these changes. However, if climate change is real, and we don't course correct, we will lose billions of human lives in the decades that follow. Is that a bet you want to make? Let me be clear, no one is advocating for a totalitarian regime to kill the free market economy. What we are actually asking for is that the offending leaders of those corporations would simply stand up and be accountable. That they would admit they have made some fucking mistakes, and that they are willing to learn from those mistakes and strive to improve the conditions they've created. However, that call has not been met. As such, we must turn to the lawmakers to do their job and enforce the will of the populace. The fact is, we do not need laws to fix this problem. We need to change the way we think about each other and our planet. We have the technologies we need right now to start making huge impacts on this issue. What we don't have is the mindset of those in positions of authority to drive those changes forward. I realize it's a big ask, but we all, every one of us, have to start thinking beyond our own short time frame on this planet. It's the only home we've got, and there's smoke creeping through the halls. The smoke detector isn't beeping yet, but it will be too late for us when it finally does. Let me say this one more time for the cheap seats. Humans have caused increased global warming. Our planet is in crisis, and it is up to us, her stewards, to correct it. The only way to do that is by banding together as one species, to right the wrongs we've done, to stop literally setting fire to the building blocks of life. We can recover, we can overcome, but the time to act is now. If we continue to treat this as a problem of the future, one that we ourselves will never face, we will only guarantee that our grandchildren's fates are sealed. Well, those are my thoughts on that. If you stuck with me this far, please don't forget to like and subscribe. For now, I'm the Exacto Guru, reminding you to be excellent to each other.